you're familiar with the YouTuber, or I don't know. I'm sure he does more than YouTube. Okay, but Kennedy Hall. I think he maybe writes articles and other things. But
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he on Twitter not too long ago, he was talking about. He mentioned that the canonizations, at least the current way they do canonizations, is not infallible. Maybe the old way was infallible, but the new way, because they changed something, it seemed like it's not infallible anymore. That was the gist of it. He was putting on in his tweets, and that responded one a bit. I just felt like we should just talk a little bit about this, like that.
Well, yes, I think this is ridiculous because in making these Novus Ordo saints, the Novus Ordo is asking the faithful to render, worship to certain people, that whether you like it or not, you cannot invoke the process of canonization in order to deny the infallibility of canonizations, because the church is not only infallible in the process of canonization, but also in the daily worship of the saints. So if the church could from now on propose to your veneration, ask you to, people who are actually in hell, ask you to kiss the holy relics of, the relics of somebody who is with Lucifer at the moment, say mass in his honor, also pray the divine office in honor of somebody who is into eternal damnation. That makes absolutely no sense. It is against the infallibility of the Catholic Church, the ordinary magisterium of the Church. It is something that makes absolutely no sense. So the only way, it reminds me of another story. When I was at the Episcopal consecration of Bishop Zendejas, I spoke with one of the priests there who was attending. So I'm speaking of a resistance priest. And as soon as I started mentioning this question of canonizations as being a problem, how can we, accept the canonization of people such as Mother Teresa, now Paul II, and so on? Well, he told me outright, canonizations are not infallible. And he was speaking of all canonizations, not only those of modern times, but all the canonizations. So I said, wait a minute. I said, Father, wait a minute. So you're telling me that actually Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus could be somebody who is not a saint, who is not in heaven? And he said, yes, that's what I mean. And I said, so you're telling me you could be saying Mass in honor of somebody who is not in heaven? And he said yes. And so I continued pushing him, because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I said, so when I say Mass for the Mass in honor of Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus, I could actually be venerating somebody who is in hell. And I could see then that he was becoming white and very, he didn't know what to say anymore, but he nevertheless said yes. So I quit the conversation. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. But it shows you one thing. It shows you that if you're trying to play a game with the infallibility of the Church, then you're going to lose the faith altogether and become a heathen. You're going to. And Bishop Lefebvre said that in one, I think it was in 1986, in one of his sermons. Bishop Vigano quoted that in his letter of June the 28th. He said Bishop Lefebvre was speaking in 1986 only to seminarians, only to clergy, but he told them the following, and I heard that myself in listening to his conferences of Bishop Lefebvre. He said, we will have to address with the faithful this question of the Pope. Otherwise, people will lose the faith. And they will lose the faith. It doesn't mean losing the faith doesn't mean that you become an apostate. It's enough to deny one of the truths of the faith in order to have lost the Catholic faith. So yes, if you start denying the infallibility of the canonizations, you are losing the Catholic faith. So again, Bishop John Paul II, Balaguer, Mother Teresa are not people who are just undergo a process of canonization and then you put them in the closet. No, they do exist now and forever in the Novus Ordo Church as people we should venerate people whose relic we should kiss. We should bless people with their relics. So no, you're not telling me that a church who would canonize questionable people can be the church established by our Lord Jesus Christ. Otherwise, you don't have the Catholic faith.
It would seem to me blasphemous to say
Absolutely.
that somebody like St. Anthony of Padua is in hell.
Well, obviously, it is blasphemous.
Like what? Or could be in hell. It could be in hell. I don't know.
Right. Well, there's no doubt about it. It is blasphemous, but it is also blasphemous to say the Novus Ordo Church is the church, but their canonization, but it's not infallible. So you're telling me that a reality, something that is the church, is not infallible in its canonizations and in the veneration of its saints and so on. So yes, obviously, it is blasphemous.
To Kennedy Hall's, I guess you could say, credit. He didn't say, he said the new way of doing things makes it in, not that makes it any better, but at least not saying what
right.
Priest
right. But this other priest was going much further. I couldn't believe what I mean. God knows that I heard that. There's no doubt, and I quitted the conversation at this time. I just thought this was too much. But I saw this. I'm hoping that this priest wasn't really believing this, but I saw that he would rather. It's frightening because I saw that he would rather deny the Catholic faith rather than to tell me, okay, Father, you've got me on this, you're right, I have to correct my ways. No, and that's scary because it means that some people could do the same. Lots of people could do the same. If you don't like the truth, well, enough to correct yourself, well, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, that was when I was making my journey, you could say, from it to tradition. That was one of the issues that really convinced me that there's, among other, that Francis, can't be a true pope, is when he canonized JP2.
Right.
And I renewed. I was like, at this point, I was like, there's something wrong. Obviously, something wrong with JP2 if he's praying with these.
Right, and is it necessary to remind Kennedy Hall that Saint John Paul II excommunicated Bishop Lefebvre? So we have there a saint of the church who, no, he says that it's not infallible. Well, obviously, he has to say that, but then nevertheless, either it is infallible or it is not, and if it's not infallible, it's not the church. But the way out for some people is saying, well, it's as if a reality like the Novus Ordo Church could some days be the Catholic Church when it pleases you, when it says something that sounds Catholic to you, then it is the Catholic Church. But when it says something that you think, but you become, at the end of the day, you become the teaching church instead of the teaching church. That's the problem with this.
Yeah, I think people need to just realize that if they're watching this, that canonizations are infallible. Infallible proclamations of the church that these people are to be venerated, and I don't think we have the option to say, no. I won't venerate him. Like, I won't look at him as a saint.
Absolutely not. No.
We have to consider them saints.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you have to consider somebody who has been canonized. You have to consider as somebody worthy of veneration.
Yeah, and to say no, that person is not a saint would be to go against the church.
Well, can I be then free to decide certain days to say the breviary or not to say the breviary because I don't agree with the canonization of this or that saint that's in the breviary? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, absolutely no.